Hi, I'm Stephen Head from Archery Supplies, and today we want to look at arrow shafts and arrows that you're going to buy. And primarily what I want to do with this video is compare cheap arrows versus expensive arrows and the difference you're going to see when you shoot them. So when you walk into an archery shop, like here, there's a whole bunch of arrows to choose from, and generally you've got to choose which one you're going to go for. Now some of the things you're going to consider is aluminium arrows versus carbon arrows. Now in my view, aluminium is going to be subject to bending and breaking. So if I hit an aluminium arrow against an aluminium arrow, it's going to crack. So I tend to avoid aluminium arrows, and these days aluminium arrows are less popular than carbon. In a ratio of about 99% of arrows are carbon and about 1% aluminium these days, maybe even a higher percentage of carbon. So I'm going to ignore the whole aluminium debate for this video, but I did have a customer in today with a set of aluminium arrows, and in 6 months of shooting he'd broken them. And the price of the aluminium was around the same price of a decent set of carbon arrows. So we're going to look at that. Now the first thing you're going to look at is when you jump for arrows is jumping on eBay to buy a cheap set of carbon arrows. So just behind me here, I've got a whole pile of carbon arrows. Now these arrows sell for $5 each. This is fletched with blazer vanes. You can see there's like a little kink here in the vane. That's just through the storage of them. That will come out with a hairdryer. They come with points. Now what you'll find is these points will actually come out if you shoot into hard objects. But these are a carbon shaft. They come spined. This one here's got a little knock adapter on the back end. About $5 an arrow, $60 a dozen. Then the next arrow you're going to look at is your normal carbon arrow. This is the carbon arrow that most people will buy, and this will be something like a Victory V-Force or a Gold Tip Hunter or an Eastern Power Flight arrow. Now this is your budget, and I'm going to say American carbon arrow. So this is a big brand carbon arrow by one of the big companies, but it's still their budget line. They're going to set you back about $105 a dozen, so about $10 an arrow to buy. Now for this purpose I'm going to shoot just the standard gold tips. These are 246s in thickness. Your next step up, I'm going to say the next step up is, there's actually a step in between, but I'm just going to jump that. This is the one I shoot currently for target archery. These are Victory VAP arrows. Now these are thickness of 166. Now I'm just going to compare that to a standard arrow of 246. You can see the difference. So what the thinner arrow is going to give you is less wind, less effect of wind than the thicker arrow. And also, because the arrow is actually thinner, what you're going to find is the thickness of the wall is actually thicker. So when the arrows are crunching against the arrows, and given that you can actually group arrows, so if you're going to crunch the arrows against the arrows, I find these are really durable. So these are the Victory VAPs, made up, you're talking about $200 a dozen. So you're going from $60 to about $105 to about $200 a dozen. Now for myself, I think the price point is $200 a dozen, where the arrow becomes really good quality, well spined, and when I say spined, I mean like how much it flexes, the weight tolerances. The Victory arrows are also spine aligned, and what that means is that when you flex the arrow, it will flex the same at each point along this little line here. So basically every arrow you shoot should be almost identical. And with the Victory arrow, I'm going to say I find very little difference between the economy arrow and the elite arrow. Very little difference. You can see this is one of my target arrows. This is the economy arrow. And I do have the elite arrow there. Now I shoot those completely interchangeably. I have them all in my quiver, same colors, and I shoot any arrow. It doesn't worry me at all. So come the nationals, I was shooting both the sports and the elite VAP arrows. So the last point on this I want to make, these are my Victory arrows. I shoot pins at the back end, and you can see how many knocks I shoot off. The knock just pushes in the back end. So if you're Robin Hooding your arrow all the time, you can fit the pins for about $12. Then you've got to buy the knocks, and that will protect the back end from Robin Hoods. Where with an arrow like this, when you shoot the knockoff, you're going to go straight down the back end and Robin Hood the arrow and basically erect 1 or 2 arrows. So for me, the way I shoot, where I'm shooting lots of arrows at close distance, I really need a pin system. Now you can fit pins to the cheaper arrows, but it kind of doesn't make sense because of the price point. So the purpose of this video is to compare the difference in shooting ability. So we're going to take the arrows to the range now and shoot some arrows with them. Shoot some arrows, take some shots, and let's see the difference about how these arrows group. Okay, so we're here at the shooting range. We've got the 3 arrows. We're shooting the Victory VAPs. These are a 350 spined arrow with 140 grain points. I'm shooting a Super Focus, 60 pounds, 28.5 inches. May even be 28 inches now because I think I shortened the draw length. But so these are 350 spined arrows with, as I said, 140 grain points. I'm shooting 18 meters, so let's see how they go. I'm going to hopefully aim at the middle of the target, so hopefully the arrows will go in there. I'm just going to shoot a few arrows at each target. Something feels loose. So when you hear something on your bow that sounds loose, always go and check it. So that sight had actually vibrated a little bit loose. So I don't know if that will affect the next arrow. But now I find I shoot really well with the Victory VAPs. I find them a really solid arrow. I think their costing is excellent as far as how much they cost compared to the other carbon arrows on the market. And just on that point, the other 166 size carbon arrows on the market, Eastern carbon ones, which are more expensive, they're not spine aligned. Win and Win Tornadoes, I really like those arrows. About the same sort of pricing, but I think the pins are a little bit better on the Victory, and also the Victory come with 140 grain points, where the Win and Win arrows stop at 120 grain point. Carbon ones stop at 120 grain point. Gold tip Pierce, more expensive, and to make 140 grain point, you've got to add a weight, so more expensive. The points are more expensive. Not a bad arrow. I just feel I shoot better with the VAPs. I struggled for that shot. I was thinking let down because I'm wobbling all over the place, but I didn't. Now there's going to be other 166 arrows on the market, Carbon Express medallions. Once again, the point weight on those is limited. So probably not as straight as the Victories and not spine aligned. Well, that one I shot in the 9. I shot at low 9 when it went off. Now I'm hoping these are grouping well because they feel like they're shooting well. Now I haven't eaten for a number of hours, and so I do feel a little bit shaky. Right, so I'm pretty comfortable with that group. So that's the Victory VAPs. Now, as far as I'm concerned, when you're buying a bow setup, one of the most important things is the arrows. So when you've got the choice of spending $60 versus $105, I would always recommend shooting the $105 arrows, the more expensive ones. And even if you're hunting, because the arrows are going to be stronger, more consistent than the $60 ones. And also with the cheaper arrows, you can't cut them down for your size. So whatever size they are, that's the size they are. So these are the gold tip velocity arrows, and ideally I probably would have gone for the Victory V-Force arrows to give some sort of comparison. These are velocity arrow. These are 400 spine with a 90 grain point. Now I don't know where these are going to go. I'm still going to aim at the middle target. I'm going to guess these are going to shoot high because they should be lighter than the VAP. Now back in the day I used to shoot fine with these arrows. Well, I thought I shot fine with them, so I definitely shoot higher scores today than I shot with these arrows. But let's just, these gold tip velocity arrows I've had for probably 8 years. Somewhere around that time, probably 8 years. So that's where I'm going to go back to buying a quality product. Now for hunters, they're going to say, but I'm going to lose my arrows. Do you know what, if you hit what you're aiming for, you don't lose your arrow. And most of the time you're going to be practicing anyway. So I'm like, it's no use shooting a bent arrow or an arrow without any spine and missing the animal or wounding the animal for the sake of $2 or $3. Even for the sake of $5. I mean, you spent all day to get there on a hunt. You're aiming up on a deer and I'm going to shoot my $5 arrow at it. Like, seriously, what are you thinking? Now there is a case for $5 arrows. I'm going to make the argument for $5 arrows. The argument for $5 arrows is, I shoot a crappy bow, I can't shoot, so I'm just practicing at at 5 meters, building up my strength. So I'm going to have some cheap arrows, cheap bow, and not shoot very well. And in which case, in about 4 weeks, I'll give up the sport because I'm not very good at it. So there is that case for the $5 arrows. Now there's another case for $5 arrows. Let's say you want to shoot at a brick wall. I don't know why you want to shoot a brick wall, or you want to shoot trees. Well, you're going to break your arrows, so shoot $5 ones. But seriously, like these $5 arrows might shoot great, so I'm probably preempting it, but right, now I don't know what they shot like. I think they shot slightly high in the target. Now we're going to shoot the $5 arrows. Now these have got a 100 grain point. 100 grain point on them. They're full length, so they're going to be 31 inches in draw length. They are rated at a 340 spine or a 400 spine with a 120 grain point. So it's a 100 grain screw-in point plus a 20 grain insert. So I'm actually going to aim at the top target because I think they're going to shoot low. Let's see how I group with these arrows. Well, heck, just shoot those $5 arrows all day long. I only laughed because my staff were actually out here comparing the different arrows before this video, and I thought, oh, this would be a good video. And they were shooting the $5 arrows, and they were just shooting like garbage. And I was like, oh, there you are. They went straight in the middle. Something makes a horrible noise in my top wheel. Now when your bow makes a horrible noise like that, I don't know what it was, and I've shot this bow forever. The first thing I look at when a bow makes a noise is the module coming loose. So when I hear a noise, I kind of tap the bow to see if something's loose. Now if this noise continues, because it is freaking me out a little bit, then I'll check in the draw board, and as I draw it, it's definitely coming from the top wheel. So if that noise continues, then I'll obviously check it out, but everything looks okay. And no noise at all. Archery is strange. Sometimes you get noises and sometimes you don't. Well, these are looking okay, so I don't know what they're gripping like down the other end, and we'll see in a sec. Now, with these $5 arrows, so these are about 31 inches long and I'm 28.5. So if you wanted to cut them down, you could either heat up the insert, take them out and then re-glue them in, or just buy some new inserts, cut them down. That's going to reduce the weight, speed up the arrow a little bit. But it's generally not worth doing it because these are just economical arrows. Now once again, these flights are bent and twisted, and I'm not finding a lot of difference. If you hit them with a hairdryer, put them in warm water, they will straighten up. Right, let's go down and see how they went. Actually, I think they went pretty good. Okay, so the basis of this video was to compare the cheap arrows to the more expensive arrows, and this is an indoor setup, so it's not affected by wind. It's 18 meters, it's a controlled lighting environment, basically best case scenario. Now yesterday my two staff were out here shooting these $5 arrows and they couldn't hit the side of the barn with them. Now I always do this test, can I get my fingers around them? So at 18 meters I've got five of them and I can easily get my fingers around the top group. Look, they're not as tight as this here. You can see the VAP one I shot down here on the 9, but the others are all tight. They're really tight. Now the gold tip velocity arrows, you can see every one of those arrows is actually touching each other. So the group is excellent. The group down here is excellent except for that one which I shot low in the 9, and that was just, I was moving around and shot it in the 9. So the $5 arrows are clearly not as good a result as the other two arrows. But for me, for $5, that's not bad. Now if you're a beginner and you've got a cheaper bow and you're not shooting competition, you're going to be happy with that group. Like if I adjusted my sight, that'll be pretty good. Now one thing I want to take from this experiment here. So the cheap carbon arrows are shooting basically in the middle. The VAPs are shooting in the middle. So basically the cheap carbon and the VAPs must weigh about the same weight. Now the VAPs are a little bit heavier because it's got heavier points, because I'm looking for more stability in the wind. The velocity arrows are a speed arrow used for 3D archery for guessing distances. So they're shooting a whole lot higher. You can see the difference there in the height. But the whole outcome of this is that the velocities shoot great, the VAPs shoot great. Now the $5 arrows are not bad. This is a lot better than what I saw yesterday, where they couldn't hit the side of a target. So now you may find that an average archer will shoot better with better quality arrows. Because my staff were shooting better with the better quality arrows yesterday than the $5 arrows. The $5 arrows, they were literally spraying them like that on the target. So I was like, oh well, I'll have a go and see how it will go today. And I thought, well, I'll do a video on it. So that's the comparison. So I think the $5 arrows are actually okay for the majority of the people. Now, if you want to take 50-meter shots at deer, I'm going to go back to, I don't want to wound the thing, I don't want to hurt the deer. If you're going to shoot competitions, I'm not shooting $5 arrows. But if you're a recreational shooter, the $5 arrow is definitely something I'm going to consider. I'm going to say the problem with $5 arrow, the points are glued in, and you will find you will lose them if you're shooting into a hard target. Where with the custom made arrows, you can basically fit your own. You can fit your own veins, like I'm shooting here, the boning air vein. With these ones here, these are the little X. See, I've got 2 veins. It makes no difference to the grouping. These are little X veins, I think 1.8 I used to shoot. But basically it makes no difference. So when it comes back to the shooting, if you're a recreational archer on a tight budget, the $5 arrows are probably going to be okay. But otherwise, if you can afford the extra money and you're shooting competition, jump up in price to something a little bit more durable. And if you're interested in shooting in wind and you're shooting competition, at about $200 a dozen, the Victory VAPs to me are pretty good value for money. Made up, shafts are about 140, I think, a dozen. That's Australian dollars, so they're good value for someone wanting to do target archery. So I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching and enjoy your archery.